Outlander Season 8, Episode 9 trailer just dropped. Jaime stands at the center of it all, carrying a weight that words cannot fully express. There is no celebration of survival here, only the quiet understanding that every victory is slowly turning into a loss. Jaime's thoughts are no longer focused on winning a war, but on protecting something far more fragile, his family. Because when a man like Jaime begins to fear what's coming, it means the danger is no longer distant. At the ridge, the emotional atmosphere feels completely transformed. What was once a place of warmth, the absence of Fergus continues to cast a shadow over everyone. But it is Marsali's reaction that truly defines this moment. She is no longer just grieving, she is questioning the cost of loyalty, questioning the endless cycle of sacrifice, and most importantly, questioning whether this life is worth the pain it keeps bringing. This emotional shift spreads quietly through the ridge, affecting how people look at each other and even how they think. Meanwhile, William's internal struggle deepens in a way that feels more dangerous than any physical threat. His isolation is no longer just emotional, it is shaping his decisions. For so long, he has been driven by pride, by anger, by the need to prove something to himself and to others. But in this episode, we begin to see cracks in that armor. His confrontation with Lord John is not just about disagreement, it is about identity, about not knowing where he belongs and fearing that the truth might leave him with nothing. Lord John, usually calm and controlled, shows a rare moment of frustration here, and that alone tells us how serious the situation has become. Because when someone like him loses composure, it means the stakes are far higher than they appear. At the same time, a new layer of tension is introduced through the arrival of unexpected information. It doesn't come loudly or dramatically, but quietly, almost like a warning that hasn't fully revealed itself yet. This information begins to reshape Jaime's understanding of the war, turning what once felt predictable into something far more uncertain. Alliances are no longer stable, enemies are no longer clear. And the idea that the ridge could remain untouched by the coming conflict begins to fade. When Jaime gathers everyone to share what he has learned, the atmosphere shifts instantly. The room feels tighter, the silence heavier, and the expressions on every face reveal the same thought. This is only the beginning. For her, the danger is not just political or strategic, it is deeply personal. She understands that survival is no longer guaranteed, not even for those who have endured so much already. And yet, instead of panic, she responds with quiet strength. This is what makes her presence so powerful in moments like this. While others begin to feel the pressure, she becomes the steady force, holding everything together. But even that strength carries a hidden fear, the fear that this time, love might not be enough to protect what matters most. As the episode continues, the focus slowly expands, showing how this growing tension is affecting every corner of the story. Brianna and Roger face their own turning point, one that feels less dramatic on the surface, but just as important. Their conversation about the future is not filled with arguments or conflict, but with something far more unsettling: uncertainty. The question of whether they truly belong in this time becomes impossible to ignore, and for the first time, staying no longer feels like the safer choice. It feels like a risk. What makes this section so powerful is how everything connects without needing dramatic action. The tension builds through emotion, through silence, through the realization that every character is standing at the edge of something they cannot fully control. There are no explosions, no sudden twists, but the feeling is unmistakable. Something is coming. And when it does, it will test every bond, every belief. But just when it feels like the tension cannot rise any further, Episode 9 begins to shift into something even more unsettling. The danger that, at the same time, a new layer of tension is introduced through the arrival of unexpected information. It doesn't come loudly or dramatically, but quietly, almost like a warning that hasn't fully revealed itself yet. This information begins to reshape Jaime's understanding of the war, turning what once felt predictable into something far more uncertain. Alliances are no longer stable. Enemies are no longer clear, and the idea that the ridge could remain untouched by the coming conflict begins to fade. When Jaime gathers everyone to share what he has learned, the atmosphere shifts instantly. The room feels tighter, the silence heavier, and the expressions on every face reveal the same thought: this is only the beginning. Claire senses this change immediately. For her, The danger is not just political or strategic, it is deeply personal. She understands that survival is no longer guaranteed, not even for those who have endured so much already. And yet, instead of panic, she responds with quiet strength. This is what makes her presence so powerful in moments like this. While others begin to feel the pressure, she becomes the steady force holding everything together. But even that strength carries a hidden fear, the fear that this time, love might not be enough to protect what matters most. As the episode continues, the focus slowly expands, showing how this growing tension is affecting every corner of the story. Brianna and Roger face their own turning point, one that feels less dramatic on the surface, but just as important. Their conversation about the future is not filled with arguments or conflict, but with something far more unsettling: uncertainty. The question of whether they truly belong in this time becomes impossible to ignore, and for the first time, staying no longer feels like the safer choice. It feels like a risk. At once felt distant, now starts to move closer, quietly, carefully, almost like it is watching and waiting for the right moment to strike. And what makes this part of the episode so powerful is that nothing happens all at once. Instead, fear grows slowly, spreading through Fraser's ridge like a shadow that no one can fully escape. Conversations become shorter, trust becomes fragile, and every small detail begins to feel important. The information brought earlier no longer feels like a warning. It feels like the beginning of something real. Jaime finds himself in a position where leadership is no longer just about making strong decisions. It is about holding people together when they are starting to fall apart. A council is formed, but instead of unity, it reveals something much more dangerous: division. Some believe the threat should be faced immediately, while others think waiting is the only way to survive. Voices rise, not out of disrespect, but out of fear. And fear, in moments like this, becomes more powerful than any enemy. For the first time, Jaime's authority is not unquestioned. It is challenged, not directly, but through hesitation, through doubt, through the growing feeling that no one truly knows what the right choice is anymore. Claire watches all of this carefully, understanding something that others are too overwhelmed to see. The real danger is not just outside the ridge, it is what is happening within it. When people begin to lose trust in each other, when fear starts to shape decisions, the foundation of everything they have built begins to weaken. She tries to bring calm, to remind them of what they have survived before, but even her steady presence cannot fully erase the tension that has taken hold. Because this time, the threat feels different. It feels closer, more personal. At the same time, Marsali's journey takes a powerful turn. Instead of allowing grief to consume her, she begins to transform it into strength. There is a quiet determination in her now, something that was not as visible before. She speaks not just as someone who has suffered, but as someone who refuses to let that suffering define her future. Her words carry weight, not because they are loud, but because they are honest. She wants her children to grow up without fear controlling their lives, and that desire pushes her to stand stronger than before. This shift in her character becomes one of the emotional anchors of this section, showing that even in loss, there can be resilience. Meanwhile, William's internal conflict reaches a level that can no longer be ignored. The distance between him and Lord John has created a silence that feels heavier than any argument. But everything changes when Lord John is suddenly placed under suspicion. The situation escalates quickly, not through violence, but through accusation. Loyalties are questioned, intentions are doubted, and suddenly, a man who has always stood with quiet dignity finds himself in a position where he must defend not just his actions, but his character. Watching Lord John remain composed under this pressure adds another layer of emotional depth, because we can feel the weight of what he is going through without him needing to say much at all. For William, this moment becomes impossible to ignore. What once felt like anger now begins to turn into something else: guilt. He starts to see the situation differently, to understand that his distance, his pride, may have contributed to where things are now. There is a quiet but powerful shift in his perspective, and it pushes him toward a decision he has been avoiding for too long. Instead of running from the truth, he begins to move toward it. And that movement, small as it may seem, marks the beginning of a transformation that will define his character moving forward. At the edge of the ridge, the tension finally takes a more visible form. Strange movements are noticed. unfamiliar signs appear. Nothing is confirmed, but everything feels wrong. The sense of being watched becomes impossible to ignore. And then, in a moment that changes the atmosphere completely, armed men appear in the distance. It is not a full attack, not yet, but it does not need to be. A warning is enough. The message is clear. Fraser's Ridge is no longer hidden from the war. Panic does not take over, but urgency does. Families gather, voices lower, and preparations begin almost instinctively. Jaime steps forward, bringing a sense of control to the situation, but even he knows that this is only the beginning. The illusion of safety is gone. What once felt like a distant conflict has now reached their doorstep, and from this point forward, every decision will carry greater risk. As this section comes to a close, the emotional weight becomes almost overwhelming. Lord John remains under suspicion. William stands at the edge of change, and the ridge itself feels like it is holding its breath. There are no clear answers, no easy solutions, only the growing realization that everything is about to be tested. Not just strength, not just strategy, but loyalty. Because in a world where trust is beginning to break, the question is no longer who will win the war, it is who will stand together when everything else falls apart. As the episode moves deeper into its second half, the tension transforms into something sharper, more direct, and far more dangerous. The slow build of uncertainty now begins to take shape in real consequences, and every storyline starts to feel connected by one central idea. No choice can be taken back once it is made. The pressure on Fraser's Ridge is no longer just emotional or psychological. It is becoming real, visible, and impossible to ignore. William's journey takes a defining turn here, and it is one of the most important arcs in the entire episode. After everything that has happened, he can no longer hide behind anger or confusion. The situation with Lord John forces him to confront the truth, not just about others, but about himself. There is a moment where he stands alone, reflecting on everything he has said, everything he has done, and for the first time we see him question his own actions without defensiveness. This shift is quiet, but incredibly powerful, because growth in a character like William does not come through dramatic speeches, it comes through realization. When he finally approaches Jaime again, the energy between them feels completely different from before. There is no confrontation, no raised voices, only honesty. William admits that he feels lost, that he does not fully understand who he is or where he belongs. And instead of responding with authority, Jaime answers with something far more meaningful: understanding. He does not try to control William or guide him forcefully. Instead, he offers a simple truth, one that resonates deeply. Identity is not defined by where you come from, but by the choices you make when everything is uncertain. This moment does not fix everything between them, but it builds something that has been missing for a long time: trust.